Lewis Hamilton has just confirmed a multi-million-dollar buyout clause in his Ferrari deal following the Singapore Grand Prix. Curious about what led to this shocking revelation? Stick around until the end. You won't believe the reason behind it. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. The Formula One world has completely exploded into chaos, not because of a crash, a controversial penalty, or even a shocking podium finish, but because of something far more explosive, far more scandalous, and infinitely more personal. The entire sport is still reeling after Lewis Hamilton confirmed, with his trademark precision and calm defiance, that the mythical, whispered about, and supposedly impossible $45 million buyout clause in his Ferrari contract is 100% real. Not speculation. Not rumor. Not gossip passed through paddock corridors. It's real. And now, it's detonated right at the heart of Maranello. In one sentence, Hamilton turned Ferrari's empire inside out. The confirmation didn't come through leaks or cryptic sources. It came straight from the man himself, delivered like a dagger in front of the cameras, in the most public and deliberate way possible. During a packed press conference, sitting shoulder to shoulder with Charles Leclerc and team principal Frédéric Vasseur, Hamilton didn't blink. When asked about rumors of special clauses, he smiled, leaned into the mic, and said, "Let's just say I don't sign deals without protection." The silence that followed was deafening. Leclerc looked down. Vasseur's jaw tightened. Every journalist in the room knew instantly, the story that everyone had dismissed as paddock fiction was real. The whispers, the rumors, the late-night phone calls between journalists and insiders, all of it. True. And this isn't some symbolic clause buried in fine print to make a lawyer feel clever. This is a nuclear option, a weaponized legal mechanism that gives Hamilton absolute control over his fate. Control no other driver in modern Formula One history has ever possessed. The clause, reportedly worth more than $45 million, isn't just about walking away. It's about walking away and getting paid to do it. It's a ticking time bomb embedded into Ferrari's most expensive contract in decades, a financial guillotine that Hamilton can drop at will if he even suspects foul play. Inside Ferrari, the revelation landed like a bomb. Engineers were speechless. Senior staff froze mid-conversation. One insider described the mood as like a funeral mixed with an earthquake. Because what this clause represents isn't just money, it's power. It's Hamilton saying, "You don't own me. I own the deal." The entire hierarchy of Ferrari, a team built on control, on command, on tradition, suddenly found itself at the mercy of one man who had rewritten the script entirely. To understand how this came to be, you have to go back to late 2023, the height of Ferrari's desperation. After years of heartbreak, inconsistency, and a revolving door of drivers, Ferrari wanted redemption. They wanted the most decorated driver alive. They wanted Lewis Hamilton in red, no matter the cost. And Hamilton knew it. He could feel the leverage in the air. He knew Ferrari needed him more than he needed Ferrari. The contract negotiations were a chess match. Weeks of private calls. Late-night meetings in London hotels. Lawyers arguing over every comma. Hamilton's team made one thing crystal clear: this wasn't going to be a normal deal. He wasn't signing a contract to serve Ferrari. Ferrari was signing a contract to earn him. That's when the phrase integrity protection entered the discussion, a term Hamilton himself reportedly coined. He demanded a clause that would act as a personal shield against everything he'd seen destroy other champions before him. He'd studied what happened to Vettel, to Alonso, even to Raikkonen, all men swallowed by Ferrari's politics, by the endless power games that turned dreams into nightmares. He refused to be the next casualty. Hamilton's condition was clear: if Ferrari ever sabotaged him, intentionally or not, if there was any hint of strategy manipulation, telemetry interference, or favoritism toward Leclerc, he could pull the trigger. The clause would activate immediately. No arbitration. No discussion. No appeal. Just a clean break and a $45 million payout, including salary, bonuses, and image rights. In essence, Ferrari would have to pay him for betraying him. Ferrari's top brass hated it. John Elkann, the executive chairman, reportedly slammed his fist on the table during the negotiations. He called it madness, an insult to Ferrari's legacy. He couldn't comprehend how a single driver could demand such autonomy. But the truth was, Ferrari had no leverage. The dream of seeing the 7-time world champion in scarlet red was too intoxicating. Their pride blinded them. They convinced themselves that once Hamilton was in Maranello, His charisma, his leadership, his winning mentality would fix everything. They believed he wouldn't need to use the clause, that it was merely symbolic. But one man saw through that illusion: Toto Wolff. Though no longer Hamilton's boss at Mercedes, Wolff's fingerprints were all over the negotiation. He had mentored Hamilton for years, knew his every move, his every pressure point. And according to multiple insiders, Wolff discreetly advised Hamilton's legal team throughout the process. It was Wolff who reportedly warned Hamilton never to sign anything with Ferrari unless he had full legal protection from internal manipulation. It was Wolff who allegedly told Elkann, through mutual business contacts, if you want Lewis, you'll have to give him his freedom, and pay for it. The irony is breathtaking. Ferrari, in their desperation to beat Mercedes, allowed Mercedes' mastermind to influence the very contract that would later destabilize them. It's poetic. It's brutal. It's Formula One. When the deal was finally signed in December 2023, Ferrari executives toasted with champagne, convincing themselves they had pulled off the coup of the century. Hamilton's management smiled quietly, knowing they had just armed their driver with the most powerful contractual safeguard in F1 history. Everyone thought they'd won, but only one side truly had. Because over time, that clause became Ferrari's curse. The more the team tried to control Hamilton, the more terrified they became of crossing him. Every decision, every pit call, every meeting was haunted by the same unspoken fear: what if he triggers it? Mechanics whispered about it in the garage. Strategists second-guessed tire calls. Engineers overanalyzed every radio message. Even Vasseur himself began walking on eggshells, carefully choosing his words during briefings. The clause didn't just give Hamilton power, it stripped Ferrari of theirs. And then came Singapore, the breaking point. Hamilton, already furious about favoritism toward Leclerc and questionable strategy calls, finally went public. His comment about being protected wasn't random. It was a declaration of war, perfectly timed, perfectly delivered, in front of the world. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to threaten. He simply reminded Ferrari that the pen he used to sign his contract was also the trigger for their financial self-destruction. The paddock went into meltdown. Rival team bosses scrambled to call their legal departments. Every journalist wanted the same thing: a copy of the clause. Within hours, the story had taken over the sport. Sponsors panicked. Ferrari's stock dipped. Fans flooded social media with theories, jokes, outrage, disbelief. And through it all, Hamilton said nothing more. He let the silence do the talking, because he knew the truth: power isn't about noise, it's about control. In a single move, Hamilton changed the entire balance of Formula One. He turned a team's desperation into his leverage. He made Ferrari kneel not on the track, but in the boardroom. And now, with the world watching, he's once again reminding everyone, from the pit lane to the paddock club, that he's not just a driver. He's a brand, a strategist, a tactician, a force who rewrites the rules to fit his story. Lewis Hamilton didn't just confirm a clause. He confirmed who really holds the power in Formula One. And as the dust settles in Maranello, one thing is clear: the legend of Hamilton in red isn't about racing anymore. It's about dominance, not on the stopwatch, but in the boardroom, in the headlines, and in the very DNA of the sport itself. That single hidden clause changed everything. It wasn't just a footnote in a contract, it was a ticking time bomb wrapped in elegant legal language, a weapon disguised as paperwork. And the man who helped build it? None other than Toto Wolff. The same man who spent 8 years alongside Lewis Hamilton building an empire of dominance, who knew every nuance of his personality, every pressure point, every way the sport could both crown and destroy a champion. When Hamilton left for Ferrari, Wolff didn't try to stop him. He didn't beg or plead. Instead, he did something far smarter: he protected him. Quietly, subtly, and strategically. People close to Wolff say he treated Hamilton's move not as betrayal, but as a chapter in a larger story, a temporary divergence in a relationship that, deep down, neither of them believed was truly over. If he goes, Wolff reportedly said to one of his advisors, then he goes with a safety net. And that safety net, as we now know, was a clause so sophisticated, so airtight, that it might just rewrite the balance of power in Formula One. It wasn't a parachute. It was an ejector seat. And the irony is almost cinematic. The very man Ferrari thought they had stolen from Mercedes left with a silent key that could bring him back whenever he wished, a key forged by Toto Wolff himself. The moment Hamilton confirmed its existence, the entire paddock froze. The revelation didn't sound accidental, it was surgical. Perfectly timed. Just days after the Singapore Grand Prix, where something inside Ferrari's walls had already started to crack. Rumors spread like wildfire, whispers of unexplained power drops, talk of data inconsistencies, speculation that Hamilton's car wasn't performing like Leclerc's, even when telemetry suggested it should. Inside Maranello, engineers were quietly panicking. One source said the numbers didn't make sense. Another described the internal explanations as inconsistent at best. Something was off, and Hamilton, a man obsessed with details, knew it. That's when he made the move that sent shockwaves through the sport. Hamilton's management team hired external data auditors, independent experts with no ties to Ferrari, to analyze the telemetry from his car. That single act was a nuclear strike. No driver in modern Formula One had ever taken that step. It was a public, undeniable signal of distrust. It said without words, "I don't believe you. I'll find the truth myself." And when the news leaked, the paddock went silent. Rival teams stopped whispering and started watching. Ferrari's leadership, blindsided, scrambled to contain what was quickly turning into a reputational disaster. The details of the clause Hamilton confirmed are extraordinary. 3 triggers. 3 potential escape hatches. Each one carefully designed, meticulously worded, and legally binding. The first trigger, technical sabotage, or in simpler terms, proof that one driver is receiving inferior equipment or parts. If Hamilton can demonstrate that Leclerc is getting performance advantages or upgrades he's being denied, he can terminate the deal immediately, with full financial compensation. The second trigger, internal interference in race strategy or communication. If the pit wall manipulates calls, delays pit stops, or prioritizes Leclerc's race at Hamilton's expense, he walks. Instantly. And the third trigger, the one that terrified Ferrari's executives the most, deliberate falsification of race data. If telemetry, sensor data, or power unit readings have been altered, even once, Hamilton's contract becomes void, and Ferrari is legally obligated to pay the entire buyout, in full on the spot. It sounds extreme, but it isn't paranoia. It's history. Ferrari's internal politics are as famous as their victories. Alonso lived through it. Vettel endured it. Even Leclerc, the golden child, has privately hinted at favoritism and fractured communication. Hamilton knew what he was walking into, a labyrinth of egos, power struggles, and legacy obsession. But he didn't walk in blind. He walked in armored. Every clause in his contract was a shield against the ghosts of Ferrari's past. He studied their history before signing, learned their weaknesses, and made sure that if Maranello tried to play politics, he'd be the one holding the detonator. Now that detonator is armed, and the fallout has been explosive. The Ferrari garage has turned into a cold civil war. On one side stand Leclerc's loyalists, mechanics, engineers, and strategists who view Hamilton's revelations as treachery. They believe he has undermined the unity of the team, that by revealing the clause, he's declared war from within. To them, he's not a teammate. He's a ticking bomb wearing red. On the other side are the veterans, the quiet, hardened figures who've seen Ferrari implode before. They've watched the politics devour champions. They know better. To them, Hamilton's caution isn't arrogance, it's survival. Caught between these two factions is Frédéric Vasseur, a man who suddenly finds himself leading a divided army. Publicly, he downplays the story, calling the clause standard procedure, and insisting that Hamilton's commitment is unwavering. But behind the cameras, panic is spreading. Sources inside Maranello describe Vasseur's private meetings as tense and frantic. He's reportedly furious, not only because of the leak, but because of what it reveals about how little control he truly has. Within 48 hours of Hamilton's confirmation, Vasseur called an emergency session with Ferrari's legal department to understand the worst-case scenario. The verdict was brutal. If Hamilton activates the clause under any of the 3 triggers, Ferrari cannot stop him. No appeal. No delay. The contract dissolves, and the team owes him every cent of his buyout. Sponsors are now trembling. Major brands tied to Ferrari's name have begun demanding internal transparency reports. No one wants to be caught in the storm of a sabotage scandal. The words technical inequality and data manipulation are toxic in the world of elite sponsorships. One senior marketing executive was quoted saying, "We need to know we're sponsoring fair racing, not internal chaos." Some partners have already paused promotional campaigns until the situation stabilizes. The damage isn't just sporting, it's financial, reputational, existential. And while all of this unfolds, somewhere in Brackley, Toto Wolff is smiling. Not gloating, just smiling. Because he saw this coming. Austrian media claim he's maintained constant, friendly contact with Hamilton's camp ever since the Ferrari deal began to wobble. According to one source inside Mercedes, Wolff never removed Hamilton's name from the simulator roster. It's always been there, they said. A seat, a setup, a login. Ready whenever he wants it. Whether it's symbolic or intentional, it sends a clear message: the door to Brackley never closed. What makes this story extraordinary isn't just the politics or the money, it's the psychology. Hamilton's every move feels deliberate, strategic, even cinematic. He knows the timing. He understands the headlines. He's building pressure with precision. The revelation of the clause wasn't a leak. It was a move, the opening act in what might become the most stunning driver turnaround in modern F1 history. Inside Ferrari, morale is crumbling. Some engineers have reportedly stopped sharing full data reports between garages. Others are whispering about resignations, fearing that the team's internal culture has been poisoned beyond repair. Meanwhile, Hamilton walks through the paddock calm, composed, and almost unreadable, as if he already knows what comes next. His body language says everything: control, patience, inevitability. If he leaves Ferrari, it won't be in shame. It will be in victory, a tactical, psychological, and moral victory. He'll walk away richer, freer, and more powerful than ever, carrying with him the story of how he outplayed Maranello at their own political game. And if he returns to Mercedes, to the team that shaped his legacy, it won't be as a driver chasing nostalgia. It will be as a man who mastered the art of foresight, who saw every possible scenario and prepared for all of them. Toto Wolff once said, "Lewis doesn't play chess. He plays three-dimensional chess." And now, as Ferrari burns in the fire of its own politics, the world is seeing just how true that is. Because this isn't just a contract clause. It's a message. A warning. And perhaps, the beginning of the greatest comeback Formula One has ever witnessed. If Lewis Hamilton were to walk away from Ferrari by activating the now infamous sabotage clause, it wouldn't just shake Formula One, it would detonate it. The shockwaves would ripple far beyond the paddock, beyond the fans, beyond the sport itself. It would be a scandal of biblical proportions, the kind that rewrites reputations, destroys legacies, and turns legends into villains overnight. Ferrari, the temple of motorsport, the sacred red empire of Maranello, accused of betraying the most iconic driver in history? That's not just a headline, that's a nightmare. It would be chaos, pure and absolute. The kind that no PR team, no press release, no apology tour could ever contain. The moment the story broke, the entire motorsport ecosystem would implode. Every news outlet on the planet would go into overdrive. Every pundit, every journalist, every former driver would be live on air dissecting every detail. Twitter, or X as it's now called, would melt down under the weight of hashtags like #FerrariSabotage, #HamiltonBetrayed, #ScuderiaScandal. Fans who once worshipped the prancing horse would turn their backs in fury. Sponsors would demand emergency meetings. Politicians in Italy, who treat Ferrari as a matter of national pride, would call for investigations. And as the world screamed for answers, the image of Ferrari, built over 70 years of history, would begin to crack, crumble, and collapse under the weight of its own arrogance. Because this wouldn't be a normal contract dispute, this would be treason. The world's most famous athlete allegedly betrayed by the world's most prestigious team. A betrayal not written in words, but in data, hidden in telemetry files, encrypted codes, tire temperatures, and fuel flow readings. If the auditors uncover even one piece of evidence that proves deliberate manipulation during Singapore, one fragment of data showing Hamilton's car was intentionally compromised, then Ferrari's greatest nightmare becomes reality. And then, the clause detonates. The sabotage clause, Hamilton's nuclear option, secretly embedded in his contract, triggers an unstoppable chain reaction. Ferrari would be legally forced to pay Hamilton over $45 million within 30 days. Not a penny less. No appeals, no delays. Add to that the financial penalties for breach of integrity, and you're looking at the single most expensive mistake in Formula One history. But the money wouldn't even be the worst part. The true damage would be to their honor. The very idea of Ferrari, the brand, the myth, the heartbeat of Italian racing, would be shattered. And while Ferrari drowns in legal chaos, Mercedes would rise from the ashes like a phoenix wrapped in silver. For Toto Wolff and his team, this would be divine justice. The perfect redemption arc. The story every Hollywood screenwriter dreams of, but could never invent. Imagine it, Hamilton vindicated, walking back through the doors of Brackley, greeted not as a returning employee but as a conquering hero. The man they once lost to politics and pride returning home to finish what he started. It would be poetic, emotional, and devastatingly powerful. The king comes home. That's the headline. That's the movie poster. That's the kind of narrative that transcends sport. Inside Ferrari, though, the atmosphere is poisonous. The walls are bleeding tension. You can almost feel the paranoia in the air. Engineers who once collaborated now barely speak. Departments that used to operate like clockwork have turned into fortresses of suspicion. Every whispered conversation feels like a conspiracy. And in the middle of it all, two drivers trapped in a psychological war. Charles Leclerc, usually calm and composed, is reportedly furious. Insiders claim he's told close friends that Hamilton has turned the team into a courtroom. And he's not wrong, because that's exactly what's happening. Every race debrief now feels like a legal deposition. Every technical report is scrutinized, every data log analyzed as if it were evidence in a trial. Leclerc feels cornered, humiliated, outshined by a teammate who barely says a word yet commands every headline, every camera, every whisper in the paddock. And then there's Hamilton, calm, cold, controlled, unreadable. He moves through the paddock like a man who's already accepted his fate. There's no anger on his face, no sign of frustration, just a chilling stillness. He speaks softly to his engineers, never raising his voice, never breaking composure. He doesn't argue. He doesn't react. He observes. To the untrained eye, he looks indifferent. But those who know him understand what that really means. He's 10 steps ahead. He's not playing for the next race. He's playing for the end game. Behind closed doors, his legal team waits like soldiers on standby, every document ready, every clause analyzed, every word weaponized. They know exactly what's at stake. They've been instructed to move the moment the auditors uncover something concrete, a discrepancy, a missing sensor log, a trace of manipulation. And according to whispers in the paddock, they're close. Too close. Several sources inside Maranello claim that encrypted internal messages between engineers have already been flagged. There are rumors of deleted communication threads, of altered data packets uploaded to the FIA database hours after the race. Ferrari has denied everything, of course, but the louder the denial, the deeper the panic. Insiders describe emergency meetings that last past midnight, with senior staff arguing behind locked doors. The word crisis doesn't even begin to capture it. The entire foundation of Ferrari's credibility is teetering on collapse. And while Maranello burns, Hamilton moves with eerie serenity. He doesn't lash out. He doesn't explain. He doesn't need to. He knows exactly what he's doing, and exactly how this ends. Every public appearance, every paddock walk, every calm interview is deliberate. He's controlling the narrative without saying a word. The body language says it all, detached but unbroken, silent but dangerous, distant but completely in control. He's not reacting to the chaos, he's orchestrating it. Meanwhile, Toto Wolff is watching from afar, a strategist in his element. He won't say it publicly, not yet, but deep down he knows what's coming. He knows the man he built an empire with is coming home. He knows that sometimes destiny writes its own script, and no amount of politics or power can change that. When Hamilton walks back through the doors of Mercedes, it won't just be a reunion. It will be absolution. For Ferrari, though, it will be devastation. Financially, politically, emotionally, total collapse. They wanted to rebuild their legacy by signing Hamilton. Instead, they might destroy it. The same driver they believed would resurrect their glory could become the one who tears down their dynasty from within. And the irony of it all? They won't be able to blame anyone but themselves. In the end, the image that will define this saga won't be one of anger or revenge. It will be the sight of Hamilton, calm, silent, walking away from the chaos in scarlet, knowing that every step he takes is one closer to redemption. He won't need to shout. He won't need to accuse. The truth, like it always does, will speak for him. And when it does, the sport will never be the same again. The timing for Ferrari could not possibly be worse. It's a disaster unfolding in slow motion, right before the eyes of the entire Formula One world. Austin, a track that should have been another opportunity to regain momentum, has suddenly turned into a battlefield, a pressure cooker ready to explode. Every move Ferrari makes will now be magnified 1,000 times over. Every pit call, every strategic gamble, every tenth of a second on a telemetry chart will be scrutinized, dissected, and torn apart by fans, journalists, and rivals. There's no room for mistakes, no margin for hesitation, and everyone knows it. Inside the team, the tension is unbearable. Engineers and strategists walk through the paddock with hollow eyes, whispering to each other in low tones as though they're part of a doomed mission. The fear isn't abstract anymore, it's tangible. If Hamilton senses even a trace of unequal treatment, if there's the slightest indication that Leclerc is receiving more favorable conditions, the consequences could be nuclear. The entire Ferrari organization could implode in real time under the relentless glare of global attention. And the world's media is already sharpening its knives. The Italian press, famous for its brutal honesty and lack of mercy, is preparing for blood. Headlines across La Repubblica, Gazzetta dello Sport, and Corriere della Sera already scream about betrayal, internal sabotage, and chaos within Maranello. Pundits on Italian television are openly questioning whether Ferrari has lost control of its own destiny. One commentator even said, "This is not a team anymore, it's a powder keg waiting for a spark." Inside Ferrari's communications department, panic reigns supreme. Public relations officers are barely sleeping, drafting endless press statements, rehearsing possible media responses, and desperately trying to build a narrative of calm, one they know doesn't exist. Every word from Hamilton, every subtle look between him and Leclerc, every photo from the paddock is being analyzed and managed in real time. But they can't hide it. Everyone in the paddock can sense it. Ferrari is cracking. And watching it all from a distance, calm and collected, is Toto Wolff. In the shadows of Brackley, the Austrian strategist known for his patience and precision is waiting. His message to Hamilton after the clause revelation, strategic brilliance, was not a throwaway line. It was a signal. It was an invitation. It was the equivalent of Wolff leaving the door to Mercedes wide open and saying, "You know where home is." Because Wolff knows exactly what's happening. He's seen this pattern before, the implosion of egos, the loss of control, the political games that rip great teams apart from within. He knows that if Ferrari self-destructs, Hamilton's return to Mercedes will be the most natural, poetic, and devastatingly powerful move in modern Formula One history. And the timing couldn't be more perfect. Mercedes is restructuring its future lineup. Kimi Antonelli, the Italian prodigy many see as the next big thing, is still too green, too inexperienced to lead a team of Mercedes caliber. George Russell, while immensely talented, has been struggling to consistently deliver the kind of championship-level performance that Hamilton made look effortless. The team is searching for stability, for a true leader, and Wolff knows that Hamilton represents more than just a driver. He's an institution, a walking force of nature, and bringing him back would send shockwaves through the sport. The beauty of it all, from Wolff's perspective, is that Hamilton has played this situation to perfection. His contract clause, the one that allows him to leave Ferrari in the event of organizational dishonesty, is a masterstroke of power. It's not just a safety net, it's a weapon. It gives Hamilton full control of his fate, absolute leverage over one of the most powerful teams in the sport's history. Never before has a Formula One driver held this much authority, the ability to hold a team accountable, even fine them, for failing to uphold integrity. It's not just revolutionary, it's terrifying for team bosses everywhere. The paddock is buzzing. Lawyers, agents, and team principals are quietly dissecting the implications. This clause doesn't just change Hamilton's destiny, it changes the entire power dynamic of Formula One. Drivers, long treated as replaceable assets, now see that they can demand more: autonomy, transparency, accountability. One senior executive at Red Bull, speaking off the record, admitted, "Hamilton has changed the game. Teams aren't in control anymore. He's rewritten how power works in Formula One." And now, all roads lead to Austin. The entire circus moves to Texas under an atmosphere so thick with tension you could slice it with a blade. Ferrari is on the verge of collapse. Fred Vasseur, once confident and assured, is now seen pacing the team's hospitality suite late at night, surrounded by exhausted staffers trying to patch together a plan. Leclerc, caught in the crossfire, is said to be furious behind closed doors, furious at the distractions, furious at the instability, furious that his championship hopes are being suffocated by off-track chaos. The garage feels haunted. The same engineers who once prided themselves on Italian excellence now move cautiously, afraid to speak too loudly, afraid to make mistakes. The tension between Hamilton's and Leclerc's sides of the garage is visible. Small glances, hushed conversations, nervous silences. Every decision now feels political. Every change to the car setup is questioned. Every pit stop feels like a test of loyalty. And in the middle of it all, Lewis Hamilton stands calm, unbothered, untouchable. The more the chaos swirls around him, the more composed he becomes. He doesn't need to yell or threaten. His silence says more than any statement could. His demeanor exudes control. Ferrari might have the logo, the budget, the history, but Hamilton has the power. He's turned the most famous team in Formula One into a prisoner of its own making. Deep inside Ferrari headquarters, auditors are combing through documents, reviewing communications, and quietly investigating internal inconsistencies. If they find even a fragment of misconduct, if there's any trace of behavior that violates Hamilton's integrity clause, then everything collapses. Ferrari could be forced into an unprecedented legal and financial meltdown. Sources close to the team whisper about worst-case scenarios, including Hamilton walking away mid-season and triggering penalties that could cost Ferrari tens of millions. What's happening now transcends the usual Formula One politics. This isn't just another dispute between a driver and his team, it's a paradigm shift, a redefining of power in the sport. For the first time in its history, Formula One finds itself watching a driver who isn't simply surviving within the system, he's reshaping it from the inside out. If the rumors are true, Toto Wolff already has the machinery of Mercedes quietly preparing for Hamilton's return. Inside Brackley, mechanics who once worked under him have started restoring his old simulator setup. Engineers are revisiting old telemetry profiles, analyzing historical data that perfectly fits his driving style. Some of them have been spotted smiling, exchanging quiet words in hallways. They know something. They feel it coming. And when you speak to the people closest to Mercedes, they all say the same thing in hushed tones: the king is coming home. The empty seat that once belonged to him isn't just waiting, it's glowing with anticipation. The walls of Brackley seem to hum with an energy that hasn't been felt in years. It's as if the building itself knows that history is about to come full circle. If Ferrari's house of cards collapses, and all signs suggest that it's only a matter of time, Hamilton's return will be more than a comeback. It will be a coronation. The prodigal son returning not for redemption, but for revenge, calm, focused, and utterly determined to finish the story his way. And somewhere in the stillness of the Mercedes garage, beneath the soft white lights and the quiet hum of machines, Toto Wolff waits, patient, smiling, certain. Because he knows what the rest of the world is slowly realizing: the chaos in Maranello is just the beginning. The storm is gathering, and when it finally breaks, the silver arrows will rise again, with Hamilton leading them back to glory, one final time.